I'm sorry, I've lost track. Something big We Are Waltham show. A big round of applause for everyone for helping us make it this far. So I'm going to try and keep it tight today. I am a little bit tired. My name is Chandra Lahiri, for those of you who may not know me or who may be coming to the show for the first time. This is the fall We Are Waltham big show. I also have smaller shows called Wee Was that happen twice a year. This also may be the last one for a little bit. Next year, I plan to take a hiatus from the big shows. I will continue to have the Wee Was at the Common Good Cafe, which also has an open mic segment. But just a bit of a breather. Chandra is tired. But it is very good to see everyone here. And thank you so much for coming and making this show what it is. So a quick introduction actually would be lovely to get a show of hands. How many people are coming to the show for the very first time? Oh, I love it. I love that I have people who constantly come back. Half this audience is well-known faces, but I also love that new people keep coming to this show every time. That fills my heart. So a quick introduction to what this is, why this is, and what it is. We Are Waltham is a show that I thought up 4 or 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I think. Waltham has been my home for 17 years. It's the only place that I have really felt at home because I was born in India, in Calcutta, but I grew up all over the world growing up, and I never really felt a sense of belonging until I moved here 17 years ago. My son has been through the public school system, and he finally went to college a couple of months ago. This is my city, and I challenge anybody to tell me otherwise. And I have made it my own, and it has made me. Can somebody get the door in the back, please? Someone's coming in. Oh, it's Bob. And actually, great timing, Bob. So 4 years ago, I started seeing a lot of divisions in this community, in virtual groups and everything. And I had this idea that maybe we could pull ourselves together, knit ourselves together by holding up to mirror. So I approached Bob, who's trying to sneak in from the back over there right now, with this crazy idea. I was all a mess, and Bob sat me down and he held my hand and he walked me through and he said, "You can do this." And so we started this show at the museum, which was the museum fully supported me at that point. I had no idea of funding anything. So we started our first show. We did a test show at the Riverfest, like a test balloon. And then Bob and I got together and we put up the first show here. The goal of the show, in a nutshell, is to try and build community, but I'm going to say the same spiel. Sorry to those of you who've come here before. It would be a boring world if we all thought the same way. We can't. We're human beings. We have personalities, so we're never going to be united. But we don't have to feel isolated. We don't have to hate each other if only we understand a little bit more about each other's realities, right? When somebody's story resonates with us, it makes us feel more like each other, even if we are not the same in terms of our politics and our ideology and our sociology and whatever G you can think of, right? It also, if there's something that feels very alien and strange and like it's something other, that also becomes less important when you figure out the things that are common between you. We all know we're different, but do we know how much we have in common when we're different? So this big idea that I came to Bob with, who's the director of this museum, is what if we had a show where we had all different people from Waltham, all the different walks of life, telling stories from their life? Maybe it would help pull us together. And so he said, "You go for it." And it's been 4 years. And I'm going to give you the statistics later on. I want to jump into the show. So in this show, we have 6 people, 6 tellers. We call them storytellers. We're not performers. We're telling our stories. We're not performing them. And we have worked very hard on each one of their stories. Some of them are very seasoned tellers. Some of them have never spoken in public before. And I have a request for all of you who have shown up today. You're not just watching, you're actually participating. You're active participants. Because what we have to do to encourage and support these people who are going to be telling not so easy stories about their lives sometimes is we've got to keep an open mind, an open heart. We bear witness. We hold them up. If they stumble, if they cry, if they forget their lines, are we going to be okay about it? That's right. Thank you so much. We have an amazing audience here, year after year, show after show. So these are our tellers right over here. You're well supported, well loved. No cues from me. This is just who shows up. So thank you very much. So without any more ado, Bob, do you want to say a few words now or at the end? Now.
Chandra is amazing. What she's done here that's created this is very difficult. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of care. It takes a lot of hand holding. It takes a lot of sort of beating into the wind, if you understand that sailing analogy. She is doing the real work of community building. People talk a lot about that. But she had an idea, and it was guided by the spirit of community building, with that being the goal. And she had a vision for what could be an effective avenue for achieving that goal. And then she set about doing it. You probably don't know many people in your lives who have created something from scratch of this nature. That is a selfless act. It's not for profit. And it does take a lot of hours, a lot of heart, a lot of steel in her nerves. She had to overcome a lot of fear and trepidation. And, she's exposing herself to criticism and skepticism and so forth. And I really honor that in Chandrei, and I honor that in the tellers. I've attended all but one of these shows so far, and the risks that you're taking, revealing pieces of yourself, that's a very courageous human act, and it's letting you in. It's giving you all a window into who people are, and that is really, I think, the most important thing. We look around this room, we see each other, and we know that we are, but we don't know anything about each other, not really, unless you've spent time with them. Well, these people are going to show you a little bit about who they are, and it humanizes us all as individuals. So imagine yourself doing what they're doing, and listen to their stories and feel it. These are lived experiences, and the work that's done to prepare to be able to present the way they are, to tell their stories. It's a hill climb, and they've all done it. So thank you, and thank you, Chandrei, and enjoy yourselves tonight. This is a special experience.
Thank you, Bob. That was super kind. And so without further ado, our first teller of the night. Oh, the structure of this evening, 3 tellers, little break for a raffle. We always have a fun raffle. And then 3 more tellers. And then we go our way, but Chandri might cry a little bit before that. So our first teller tonight is Monire Jalili. Monire is an Iranian-born professor at Bentley University who has called Waltham home since 2019. She loves the trails on the Stonehurst estate in the fall, but also in the winter. Not many people appreciate the trails in the winter. They're beautiful. She is interested in many things and can talk about math or business systems one minute and the search for meaning and belonging the next. She's always trying to find connections, which is why she's here today. An interesting fact, and Monire, I'm going to go ahead and tell them this. Monire is an accomplished dancer. Her story today will take us back to Tehran, where she grew up. So get ready to travel. It's okay if you don't have your passports. It will bring us back to the US. And I'm very grateful for her story. Monire. I want to see if this height is right.
Hello, can you hear me? Sure. No, I want to use my hands. So, hello, can you hear me? Okay. Thank you. Yes, it's good, I think. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. I was 22 years old. I just graduated at the top of my class and started my first job in Tehran. That morning, I felt really sharp and ready to go to this very important meeting. Like other women following Iran's dress code at the time, I was wearing long sleeves and a dark headscarf that would frame my face but cover my hair. But it was common and even fashionable to show a little hair at the front. Most women hated this dress code, but I didn't mind it. My hair at the time was dull, frizzy, generally ugly, and that scarf was my permission to hide it. So that morning, with my notebook in my hand, I walked into the elevator, ready to press the button to the 5th floor. Just before the doors closed, Kathy, my coworker, walked in. I usually tried to avoid her because she always had something to say, and it was not usually nice. Kathy suddenly leaned in, squinted in the little hair that she could see at the front, and she said, "Monire, I can see your scalp. Are you balding?" I froze. You know something? Kathy was not wrong. It's okay. Kathy wasn't wrong. I started losing my hair when I was 18. Right after high school, when I finished taking this one big university entrance exam that literally determines your entire future in Iran. I was studying day and night, living on stress for months. So my body was bound to pay the price. There was also some genetic component to it. My mom had thinning hair. The irony is that in every other way, I was thriving. I was that girl. In the school, aced all my exams, excelled at dancing. In college, my name was always on the honor board. I even got my first corporate job before I finished my degree. So from the outside, I looked untouchable, like this confident woman, girl who had figured out everything. But every morning, in front of that mirror, the look of my balding scalp was like a slap in the face. So I did what every overachiever does when something starts to go wrong. I made it a project. I went to see a doctor. He recognized the trauma as the girl I was experiencing, and he handed me a prescription for minoxidil, also known as Rogaine. So while I waited for this drug to work its magic on me, I got really good at using that headscarf to hide my thinning hair, or so I thought. Which brings us back to the day in the elevator when I was stood cringing at the corner long after Kathy left, paralyzed at the thought that if she could saw through me, maybe others did too. So this hair growing magical medication created a whole rhythm in my life for more than 10 years. Some hair growth, more hair loss. 2 steps forward, 5 steps backward. If you know this drug, you know. Oh, but life went on. I moved to the United States. I earned my PhD. I got my first job as a university professor, and I married the love of my life. And he never, even once, made me feel like I had to change anything. And that was the type of medicine that I didn't even know I needed. So life was good, steady, and even abundant. And my hair after all those years, finally grew back. I defeated that demon. But now there was a new demon in the corner, my curls. Wait, I better say frizzy curls. I know some of you might be thinking, oh, she's whining, but you need to know something. Where I come from, Iran, a woman's beauty is defined by thick, straight, long hair, and my hair was the opposite. Dull, poofy, tangly. Every morning I would catch the frizz in the mirror. I would brush out the front, make it smooth, put the rest into a bun, just move on with my day. It wasn't as bad as balding, I know, but I hated my hair and how it always made me feel something's lacking, inadequate. A few years went by and I settled into my job and resumed my hobbies, especially dancing. Started taking Latin dance lessons in a studio in downtown. And after a few months into it, I got good enough that the studio owner, Rebecca, invited me to dance in a showcase with her. So we rehearsed hard and we planned everything. Our costumes were black bodysuits with silver high heels. My makeup was smoky eyes and red lips. And we got to a point that I dreaded the most, my curls. Rebecca, I remember, ran her finger through my hair and tried to see. She said, yeah, I like it like this. I said, this looks awful. She smiled. She handed me a phone number and she said, go see my friend Anna. She's a curly hair magician. Okay. Anna's salon was in a modern building in an upscale neighborhood. But Anna's hair, wow, that was a statement. She had a big, full cloud of ringlets as would bounce as she walked. So she got to work on me. She started trimming away, snipping in silence and concentration while I was sitting there nervous, very, very self-conscious. After the trim, it was the time to wash. So as she started massaging my scalp, I started to panic because I imagined my newly grown hair was swirling down the drain. My body was stiffened and I was thinking, oh my God, I want to whisper and tell her, please be gentler, please. After that, it's time to dry. She took me to these giant hair dryers that you would only see in old movies. Turned on the machine. It was nice, warm, cozy feeling on my scalp. And then all of a sudden it got too hot, roasting. And I was sitting thinking, oh my God, my hair is frying. Like, when is this gonna be over? Like, gripping the edge of my seat, praying to all the gods. After a few more things she did to my hair, she finally turned my chair toward the mirror and she said, okay, look. I took a deep breath, ready to say that lie we all say, oh, thank you, it looks nice, I love it. You see, the woman who sat in Anna's chair an hour ago had this poofy, ugly, tangly mess that she had learned to ignore. But the woman in the mirror, she had beautiful curls, shiny, light, and alive. In disbelief, I stepped toward the mirror, looked at my hair, and I tilted my hair to the right, and my curls followed me. That was new. To the left, and they followed again. Yeah. Since then, I fully have embraced my curls to a point where I don't even remember the last time I straightened my hair. I wish I could tell you I have defeated all my hair demons, but a few years ago, a new one came along. Gray hair. Yes, if you know, you know. Yeah. So in Iran, or maybe all places, gray hair isn't deemed as beautiful is mostly known for grandmas, not women my age. This is a type of cultural conditioning that's very hard to fight. But the country is changing, and so am I. Somewhere along the way, I started to learn to forgive my hair for not being perfect, and maybe forgive myself too. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I think lefty, loosey, righty, tighty. I think I've got it now. Thank you so much, Monire. Another round of applause for her. As you can see from my hair, graying is not new to me, and I have embraced it fully also. So much that I even went blue for a few years, but I'm back to silver. So our next teller, after that amazing story, is Max Krasnow. Am I saying that right? All right, a little bit about Max. Max came to Waltham with his family in 2013 from Southern California. And 12 years later, he's still here. I didn't mean to make that sound so attitude-y. I love Waltham. He has kids in Waltham High and Kennedy Middle School and is proud to call it his home. When he isn't teaching and advising students on the Harvard Division of Continuing Education, he loves reading, playing games of all sorts, spending time with his family. He's got to say that, they're here. And mucking about in the kitchen to varying degrees of success. And I'm joking. I think he likes his family. Special thanks to him. I was really struggling to get everything done, and he really helped out with the playbill. So if you have not gotten a playbill, please pick one up on the way out. They're on the counter, or volunteers may have it here. So here we have Max Krasnow. Max, let's get this thing ready so I don't have to discuss.
So I've known that I was a sperm donor baby since I was a teenager, and it really couldn't have mattered less. My dad was my dad, my family is my family, I am who I am. But a little while later, it did start to matter when my wife and I were thinking of having kids. We realized we had no idea about that side of my family medical history. What if my donor's mom had breast cancer, or they had a history of heart disease? We had no idea. I asked my parents, and they didn't have any records, but fortunately that fertility clinic was still around, and so we could contact them, and they were able to send us over a report. On that report, we were able to find the donor's height and weight and eye color, hair color, and ancestry. But disappointingly, that was all. No medical information. But more than disappointment, the emotion I really felt was shock. For my whole life, my parents had told me that the donor that they had used was like my dad. Eastern European Jew, around 5'8", light brown hair. But that's not what this report said. This report said my donor was a 6-foot-something, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, half German, half Irish guy. German? Irish? No. That's not how I think of myself. My people don't have beer gardens and Oktoberfest where everybody wants to go and have fun. My people don't have St. Patrick's Day parades where everyone wants to drink green beer. My people are less than 2% of the population, and we eat Chinese food when everybody else is opening Christmas presents. This was really weird, but in the end, it didn't change anything. I didn't care about that donor. My dad was my dad, my family's my family, and I am who I am. But that's not the end of the story. Because sometime later, that fertility clinic, they were in the news. And you probably see where this is going. It turns out one of the doctors there who was working back when my parents had used their services, instead of giving their patients the donors they had requested, he had used his own sperm. Yikes. Yuck. And how many families had he done this to? How many half-siblings are running out there, running around not knowing? Could I be one of them? I had no idea. How could I find out? Well, how did those other people find out? How did the information come out in the first place? It turns out, if your dad is a shady fertility doctor, it's not the best idea to send your DNA to Ancestry.com. That's what his son did, and that's what started all of the matches to start popping up. But this meant that I could find out if I wanted, and I just had to know, right? So I sent my DNA kit off to Ancestry.com and got my report back. And they did have a 100% chance match for my donor in their database. But it wasn't this doctor. The guy that they had, who was my donor, was awesome. I Googled him and was amazed at how much we seemed to have in common. He was a college professor. I'm a college professor. His research area was adjacent to my research area. We had even done similar kinds of research. For the first time in my life, when I thought about my donor, I felt a connection, and I felt like I wanted to know him, to reach out. But then I thought, does he want to get to know me? Does he want that connection? I mean, this was 40 some odd years before. Maybe he wants this in his past. Maybe it's a secret he doesn't want his family to know. I have no idea. And I don't want to make him uncomfortable. So when I'm writing an email, I'm drafting it up, trying to think of some way that I can make contact without putting pressure on him. And I'm thinking about different ways that I could give him some kind of out, some plausible deniability or some kind of gentle way to say no. And I'm thinking of what that could be. Maybe it could be that Ancestry got it wrong. Maybe that test showed the wrong results. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's a genetic relative. But I guess with that level of overlap, it would have to be an identical twin. So maybe that's not the best excuse. In the end, I went with something relatively straightforward. It was something like, I would like to be in touch, but if that's not what you want, I understand. It's okay. And I sent the email off. And I waited. And I waited. And a few weeks go by and I don't get a response. And I'm starting to reconcile to the idea that he didn't want to be in touch. But then I do get an email back. It turns out I had used an email address that he barely checked anymore, and he had just now got that email. And he Googled me, and he saw how much we had in common, and he was excited to be in touch. But he asked, were you conceived in the San Francisco Bay Area or in San Diego? And think back to what Chandri said. He says, because I only donated in the San Francisco Bay Area. My identical twin brother donated in San Diego. What kind of soap opera level craziness is this? There's an identical twin brother and he's my donor? After the shock of that wears off, we exchange emails back and forth, and I end up having long conversations with both him and his brother. And the connections we have and the similarities are really uncanny. We love the same kinds of foods, we love the same kinds of books, we studied the same foreign languages. My donor had even done research as an undergraduate that, in a funny way, set up a premise for the research that I did my PhD dissertation on. I mean, my donor and I have collected swords. This is crazy. When we've been back to California, my family's been able to visit with them, and so we know this. My wife, after having listened to them talk, says that we even have mannerisms in common. We speak the same way. I started off this story by saying that I had no interest in who my donor was or connecting with them. And for 40 years, that was true. But after getting to know my donor and his brother, I started wanting that connection. I wanted to know more. And I stopped thinking of him just as a donor. I started thinking of him as a bio-dad. Or is it bio-dads? Or bio-dad and bio-uncle? In the end, it doesn't matter, because now I'm starting to think of them as family. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. That was lovely. Thank you so much. This mic is my nemesis tonight. Can someone with more talent help me? Oh, there. I think I just needed to. You guys are too easy. Thank you so much, though. All right. That was awesome, Max. Thank you so much. Also, can I just give a big shout out to Max? He told this story in the open mic section of the Wee Wall, and I pretty much grabbed him by the collar and I said, "You, stage, November." And he came through so beautifully. Thank you so much. All right. Our next teller before the break is John Allen. A little bit about John, and then we're just going to adjust things a little bit. So as you may have noticed, generally there's no scripts allowed on this show, but sometimes people need a little bit of help, and I don't hesitate to give it to them. So, but see how cleverly I've disguised it? And none of you know that there's actually notes that he might be looking at. So John has lived in Waltham since 1986. I'm terrible at math, but even I know that's about 40 years. He works as a writer, mostly about bicycling. And he's also a bicycling instructor and translator, and occasionally works with attorneys in cases involving bicycling. And interesting fact, at my house earlier, even though he's getting over a virus, he did 2 ridiculous pull-ups on the pull-up bar that have put me to shame. So I'm outing you. Yeah, he's your guy. A lot of people do know him. He's a fixture of Waltham, and it's absolutely my pleasure to have him on stage today. John Allen. So let's get you right. Is this the right height?
Raise it a little. All right, and this wonderful microphone, we all love it. Let me apply some of that strength to that microphone clamp. Oh no! Now I have to move the music stand so I can read. So I'll just get this right. Okay, yeah. So many of you will have seen me riding a bicycle around in Waltham. My bicycling in the Boston area started in 1971 when I arrived to study at MIT. I shared an apartment a mile from campus. I needed to be on time for my classes. Waiting for the unreliable bus would not work. The red line would require 3-block walk in the wrong direction at each end of my trip. That wasn't any good. Okay, thank you. There's no parking for students, so I rode my bicycle up and down every day. I used my car for special errands and weekend trips. It stayed parked for weeks on end. So, well, how well did this work? I would obey the traffic law. I would ride on the right side of the road. I would wait for traffic signals, all of that. I could make good time passing on the right of traffic jams on my bike. There's a problem though. I was a traffic hick from Vermont. I expected that other people also would obey the law. But that's not how people roll around here. For example, one time, a block from MIT, a wrong-way cyclist snagged and ripped the only good sweater I had. Another time in Inman Square, a taxi door suddenly opened up on my left for someone to get out, and I nearly ended up inside the taxi. It's called dooring. And that isn't the worst thing with dooring. The worst thing is if you're in the door zone on the other side, and that can throw you out in front of a bus. Never happened to me, thank goodness. Has killed people. My lowest point, though, was when I actually injured someone. It was in Central Square. I was passing on the right. A woman walked out from between cars, stopped at the traffic light, second or third car back, and I tried to avoid her, but I glanced against her front. She fell and she broke her elbow. I wasn't feeling good about bicycling at that point, and I didn't feel good about myself about that. I realized that traffic law was not the whole story. I was going to account for Boston traffic behavior, which requires some special skills. So flash forward to 1977. I was done at MIT, but I was working across the river in Alston. Still rode my bike everywhere. And when riding home, I'd keep to the right of traffic like most bicyclists. Since we're slower than the cars, it feels like the safer place to be. But at crossings, that meant I had to remember to look behind myself for whether the car back there was going to turn right and potentially take me down. And when I'm coming up to the intersection, I have to play a guessing game. Well, that was guessing game. The car driver had to play a guessing game too, to guess whether I was going to run the red light the way so many bicyclists unfortunately do. Guessing games don't work very well in traffic. A sense of fatalism set in for me. I had grown to accept that bicycling was never going to be any better. Well, then one day I was at the bicycle exchange of hallowed memory in Harvard Square, where Ben Olken had ridden the tide of 3-speed bikes after World War II and the 10-speed boom in the 70s. He was a historical figure in Boston bicycling. It's a shop that had everything, unfortunately now gone. On the shelves, I came across a spiral-bound book that I had heard of. Thank you, Chandri. that sounded interesting. I rolled it up under the spring clip on my bicycle's rear rack and took it home, and I started reading it. And a sense of possibility started to dawn on me. I started trying out the author's suggestions. For instance, I would ride in the lane where I wanted to go, not always in the right-hand lane. The middle lane, if I wanted to go straight, the left lane, I was hanging a left turn. I put myself where the car drivers would see me rather than sneaking up. It helped that I had a rear view mirror because I could see that they could see me. I could see how they'd react. At one particular intersection, there was a real game changer event. Where Cambridge Street comes down Soldier Field before the bridge over the Charles, you know, where the old Coca-Cola plant used to be. I've got to give Boston directions here. That was a very busy intersection, and it had been clumsy and slow and awkward and unpleasant, no matter how careful I tried to be. But now I rode down the middle lane to get to where the light changed so that I'd be in the right flow of traffic. And wow, this is like the book of Exodus where the waters part. The traffic that goes to the left was peeling off on my left side. The traffic that goes to the right is peeling off on my right side, and I'm going down the middle with the traffic that goes straight. So I got across the bridge, and then a couple blocks later, I turned right onto the quiet residential street and headed to my apartment down there. Okay, so to wrap things up here, when you see me riding in Waltham and I'm not in the door zone and I'm riding in the left turn lane and like that, it's because I'm not going to be the bicyclist who comes out of nowhere. Thank you.
But thank you so much for that story, John. A round of applause for him again. All right. So we are up for the break, for a brief 10-minute break, but I do want to show you what has become kind of a fun tradition for us is a raffle. Usually raffle proceeds go to fund this show because I don't make any profit from it. It's grant and ticket and raffle funded, but we're going to make an exception because we had great turnout today and my show is funded, I believe. We're going to be donating proceeds from today's raffles to Healthy Waltham to help people who have been hurt by the pausing of SNAP benefits. It's really good to know that everyone's behind this. So I have wonderful volunteers who are going to be coming through. We actually have 2 raffles today. The prices of tickets are $1 for 1 ticket, or for $5, you get 8 tickets, so you get 3 free ones. And the 2 things that we're raffling is leading from John's wonderful story. It's this sign that says, "May your journey always lead you home. May you not get doored. May you not get taken down by cars. May you not have your favorite sweater ripped, right? Or your elbow broken." The second thing that you can put your money into the hat for is this map of Waltham. My day job is I'm a cartographer and GIS specialist. And what this is it's an old topographic map of Waltham in 1893. It's not the original. I printed it out from a copy that I have access to. And what I do is I spend a few hours carving out layers to show different contours. And so it's a 3D map. If you come real close, you will see my really hokey X-Acto work, knife work, but it is what it is. It's imperfect, but it is our beloved city. So pitch your hat in the ring. I do not make this for sale in any other venue. It is only for raffles, and it's only here. It will never be mass produced. It will always be very, very tacky. So we have, so I think we have, are you guys gonna spread out? So there'll be one person coming through with raffle tickets. Please, you can pay through Venmo or cash. And I will ask, please start moving regardless of whether I talk. And then please rip up your own tickets and put them in the right bag. So welcome back from the break. Thank you so much for supporting the raffle sales. We will do the drawing at the end, so it gives you just a little bit more time to put things together. So we are moving on to our fourth teller. One second, I picked up the wrong card. I'll be right back. Our fourth teller, some of you may know, is Juju Simmons. Juju's, well, actually, so I'm going to read something that Juju sent me instead of the thing that I wrote Juju. She says, "Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Juliana Simmons. I go by Juju. I'm a resident of Waltham. My family goes back many generations from when my great-grandparents immigrated from Italy and settled in the William Street area to when my grandfather immigrated to Italy in the 50s and went to South Middle School in Italy? Here. Okay. I am a fairly recent graduate of Waltham High School, and I'm currently a biology major at Emmanuel College. Excuse me if I sound nervous, but I was diagnosed with autism at age 2. I was in the TASC task program for kids on the spectrum. I went to Stanley and McDevitt before I came to Waltham High School. So I am incredibly proud of Juju coming up here and talking to us today, especially when you hear her story. Juju came up to me 5 years ago, when I first launched the show. And every year we talk about her doing the show, and I'm going to cry that she's actually doing this. You go, Juju!
All right. So, hi, everyone. In 6th grade, I was struggling in math class at McDevitt Middle School. In case you all know, autism spectrum disorder affects how people communicate and learn. It can range from mild high functioning to severe or low functioning. I have high functioning autism. My power in class would not be very attentive to my struggles because he would be in the back of his classroom on his iPad or phone, or he would be taking care of another student in my class who also was on the spectrum but had behavioral issues. Every week, when my teacher returned my homework, he would say, "I could see you have trouble understanding some of the ideas. Please speak up and ask for help." Now, in case you didn't know, autistic people have a hard time with social skills and interacting with people. It looked like he knew this and was trying to help and sounded annoyed, so it made me not even speak up even more, and it scared me too. And turns out, I ended up getting a C in math class during my first quarter in middle school. In high school, I got involved in a podcast called Spectrum Buddies. It was where the crew would talk about their lives growing up with autism. During the pandemic, we invited teachers from school to join us virtually. It was a bit unconventional for students and teachers to socialize with each other outside of school, considering they have rules that they can't follow each other back on social media while they're still in school. But the podcast hosts were Waltham High School alumni, and I was one of the few high school crew members, so we did it anyway. I got to listen to the stories of teachers that I used to have or were about to have. It was nice to hear about their experiences teaching autistic students and about their teaching lives. We would take turns asking questions as crew members. Gradually, over the months, Spectrum Buddies allowed me to connect with other autistics, but also it taught me to develop closer relationships with teachers, so I would be more comfortable asking for help. and it foreshadowed my LinkedIn connections. And this was all new for me. All right. My senior year of high school, more than a year later, guess what? I accidentally forgot to do my homework in Spanish class. It was my senior year of high school. I was embarrassed about it, and I told my peers, I'm screwed. I was nervous to talk to my teacher because normally I wouldn't be granted extensions for homework assignments, but my teacher was Senora Guinea. She was really nice, very outgoing, and tried to get us engaged with her energy. One of the things she used to make us do was stand up and walk around the classroom and talk to other kids in Spanish. High school started so early that I found it tiring to walk around, and it was annoying to speak with others since my autism makes that hard. I realize now that she was teaching me to do difficult things that were outside of my comfort zone. So when I forgot my homework, I was super nervous, but I made myself ask her for an extension. She could see that I was all nervous and getting ready to like break down, but luckily she gave me the extension. I felt relieved that I was able to speak up and express myself. A few months later, I was a freshman at Emmanuel College. There was a retreat going on that I really wanted to go to. It was to help students make connections with each other, and I knew that was even more important to me since my autism makes it hard to make new connections. But I had a problem. There was homework due on that Monday after the retreat. I knew before I got to college, I would need to learn how to speak up for myself, considering teachers would remind us all the time about that. So I remembered Senora Guinea and what she told me, and I wrote emails to two of my professors. I was a little nervous speaking up for myself, but I knew from my Spanish class that I could do it, and I got those extensions.
Way to go, Juju. That was so good. Another round for her. Come on. You killed it. You gonna do it again? Was this fun? Are you gonna do it again? Was this fun? I call that a win, people. Thank you so much for your story, Juju. There's so little we know about the realities of others, and this was just the most charming story. Thank you. Our fourth teller, and we're almost at an end. We only have one more teller. No, our fifth teller. I have the numbers mixed. We only have one more teller after this is Angel Okumu. Angel was born in Uganda and moved to the US in 2007. She has a very long and very interesting story. I'm not going to tell it to you, but this is the book that's on pre-order outside. I recommend that you scan it and pre-order it because the little that I've heard about Angel's life is worth hearing, and I'm really happy she gets to this platform to share this one little story, which is just so moving. And I want to say this spring, I suspended the big show and instead I had a generative storytelling workshop right here in the space. And that's where we heard Angel's story. And it was just, I had to have her on. So I'm really grateful to her. But to summarize her journey, after a lot of struggles, she eventually became a natural skin and hair care line. She started that. She became an entrepreneur. She's a survivor, she's an entrepreneur, and she's an author, and she's going to be telling us the story today. Angel?
Can you hear me? Okay. I think this is good. Yes. It was September 2008, the kind of early autumn morning that smells like cold air and quiet hope. The kind where the sun hides behind gray clouds and the world feels heavy but somehow still alive. I was 9 months pregnant, barely 20 years old, and living in a small apartment on Central Street with an elderly woman I called Grandma Teddy. She wasn't my grandmother by blood, but she was my grandmother by grace. She was one of the only people that did not look at me with judgment when I had nowhere else to go. The man I loved had long disappeared, leaving behind silence, confusion, and a growing belly. His grandmother and I met to do, however we could, babysitting immigrant children for $20 a day and renting out every inch of our apartment to strangers. There was a young man that took the kitchen floor, and there was a middle aged woman who took the bedroom. Grandma Teddy and I shared the pull out couch in the living room, which was our sofa during the day and our bed at night. It was crowded, it was suffocating, but it was survival. That afternoon, Grandma Teddy and I walked down Moody Street, after picking up groceries from the Indian store and a few baby essentials from Global Thrift Store. The air bit at our faces, and the sidewalk was wet from a little bit of drizzle. My back ached because my belly felt like a boulder, but I was excited. In just 5 days, my mother was arriving from Uganda to help me welcome my baby into the world. And all I wanted to give her was even the smallest corner of comfort when she arrived. Then we saw it, a mattress, thrown out by a neighbor, leaning against a wall a few buildings down. It wasn't new, it wasn't clean, but to us it was perfect. It was a bed for my mother to sleep on. We looked at each other, and without saying a word, we decided to take it. So there we were, a heavily pregnant young woman and an old lady with arthritis dragging a full mattress down Central Street in the middle of Waltham. We laughed and stumbled, huffing and puffing, drawing curious stares from passers-by. But we didn't care because we were proud of our find and doing what we could with what we had. By the time we wrestled it down the narrow basement steps, our arms were aching and trembling. We laid it on the floor, dusted it off, and Grandma brought out mismatched bedsheets that she had brought from the thrift store. She bragged about how secondhand cotton sheets were more authentic, thicker, stronger, and were meant to last. That night, for the first time in months, I felt a quiet happiness, knowing that my mother would finally have a place to sleep when she arrived. But approximately 15 minutes into lying down, I started to itch. At first, it was small pinches on my skin, then sharp, relentless bites. I turned on the light and froze. The mattress was alive. Bed bugs, they were crawling, swarming everywhere. I screamed so loud that Grandma Teddy came running, and when she saw it, she screamed too. We tore the sheets off, and with the help of the young woman that slept in the kitchen, dragged that mattress outside at midnight. And then, as if the night hadn't taken enough, I felt a deep pain, a tightening in my stomach, then another, and then I went to the bathroom. I saw blood. That moment, everything changed. Grandma knocked on the door asking if I was okay, and I remember telling her, "It's time." The strain, the lifting, the cold, the fear, it had all triggered early labor. I was taken to Mount Auburn Hospital and labored for what felt like forever. My body was exhausted, my mind was sleeping, and the baby's heartbeat had started to fade. They rushed me into the emergency operating room just as I began to lose consciousness. Right before everything went black, I remember the glare of the white lights above me, the cold metal underneath my back, and the sterile scent of antiseptic filling the room, and the loneliness, the deep kind that sits heavy on your chest. My mother was still thousands of miles away. Grandma couldn't leave work or we wouldn't eat, and the man who had promised to love me had vanished. That night, my first son, Victor, was born under the bright lights of the operating room. I was unconscious, alone, and the only voices in that room belonged to strangers doing their best to serve a young mother and her baby. And now, years later, when it's time to replace a mattress, every few years or so, I move through the store slowly, inspecting every detail. I can feel the quiet judgment when I ask too many questions or take too long. But they don't know. They don't know that once my only option was a discarded mattress on the street. They don't know that that night almost broke me. And they don't know that now when I choose a mattress, it's not pickiness. It's reclaiming the power I once didn't have. Because once I had no choice, and now I do. Thank you.
That's going to be a really hard act to follow, but thank you, Angel, for sharing that. I told you it would be memorable, right? So it is a hard act to follow, but if there's one person who can follow it, it is Harold Cox, who is a very well-known storyteller in the area. Harold is a Texas native and a Boston University professor, but he did get his PhD in Brandeis, so he has made this place his home for a while as well. We will have him back maybe sometime to tell us his memories of that time. But, and then the other thing about him is he likes to turn tiny, everyday moments into captivating stories. And if any of you have seen him on some of the big stages he's been on, including The Moth, Stories from the Stage, Risk, Riot Improv, you'll know that Harold will see stories in the smallest moments, and he will tell them to you so well that you'll never forget it again. But I'm not going to tell you anymore. I'm going to let him tell you a story that goes back to the time that he was actually in Waltham and how his life could have turned out very, very differently. Harold?
I'm from Texas, and if there's anything that all Texans know how to do, it's talk. We talk loud, we talk for a long time, and we are confident about everything that we talk about. Just think about Texans that you know. So these were the skills that I particularly needed when I was working as a radio announcer. So back in 1985, I was at Brandeis, and I had a little radio show. It was a classical music program. And quite frankly, they would have taken anybody who was breathing. So I had a little show, and I would play some tunes, and I would say a few things about these classical pieces. Well, one night I was doing my show, and I got a telephone call. Well, it's a little unusual because my show was at 3 o'clock in the morning. And the only people at a college station that's listening to a classical music program are people who are coming in from getting drunk, or people who are about to go out and get more drunk. So I got this telephone call, and this guy started by saying, "Look, I was just listening to you, and I liked what you said." I thought, okay, that's a little unusual. And then he said, I work for a radio station in town, and we have a classical music program also. We like to invite new people to come in and be the host of our program. We like what you're doing. We would like for you to come in and be a host at our show. I stopped listening to him, and I went into my head, and I thought, I have been discovered. I am about to become a millionaire. I am going to be known by lots of people. I can leave graduate school. I don't have to be here anymore. This is absolutely going to be wonderful. So I went back, and I was still listening to him, and he was still talking, and I was listening. And then he said, "Look, I want you to come down to the radio station so we can talk about it a little more." I said, "Yeah, when?" He said, "How about tomorrow?" I said, "It's great." Next day, I went down to the radio station, and again, he said, "We have a radio show, and we have a classical music program, and we would like for you to consider being one of our radio hosts." Great, he said, "but before we put you on the air, we need you to work with one of our radio announcers so that you can learn some things about the show." So that sounds great. So for 4 weeks, I went twice a week down to the radio station, and I worked with this radio announcer who taught me some things about my voice, about the radio show, about the things that I needed to know in order to do this classical music program. About 2 weeks into the program, the announcer said, look, we really made the right choice. You will be okay, except you do 2 things that we don't do here, and we need you to work on this. Okay, well, what? He said, first off, you say debut, as in PQRSTUV, debut, XYZ. I said, well, I'm from Texas. He said, well, this is not Texas. So he said, you need to actually learn how to say it differently. So I want you to know, it is very hard to go from W to W. But I did. I worked at it, but eventually I could say WBUR. That was the radio station. So he said, okay. The second thing he said is, it's really good that you have banter with your audience. We really like that. But sometimes you have some things that you say that we don't quite know exactly what you're talking about. So for instance, you'll say things like, this is not the only fish worth frying. He said, I do not know what you're talking about. Said, well, look, it has to do with opportunity. You know, it's like you go fishing and you get this fish, but there are a whole bunch of other fish. Or you can have this job, and then there are lots of other jobs that you can have as well. It has to do with opportunity. He said, oh, that's cute, but we ain't gonna do that here. I said, okay, that's fine. So I continue with my training, and now it's 45 seconds before I go on the air for the very first time. I'm so very excited. The sound technician said, it's time for us to do sound check. So we did it. Sound check, everything went fine. 30 seconds before I went on the air, I remembered the very first thing that I was supposed to say, because it's something that I have been practicing everywhere. I'm supposed to say, this is 90.9 WBUR, or this is WBR 90.9, something like that. I have practiced it everywhere. When I get up in the morning, when I take my shower, when I drink my first cup of coffee, when I am driving into work, even when I answer the telephone. Hello, 90.9 WBUR, I am ready. 15 seconds before we go on the air, I readjust the seat, I readjust my headset, I look at the papers, I know where everything is, I am ready. And now the producer is giving the countdown, 10, 9, and when they finish, I'm supposed to speak. 3, 2, 1, and I said, nothing. For the first time in my Texas-born life, I am scared. I have never been that frightened of anything. I cannot say anything. And the producer is doing these gyrations and saying, you gotta talk, you gotta talk. There's dead air. I do not know what is dead air, but I am not able to talk. So now I've gotta really force things, and I'm trying to force these things out of my head, and I force it to come out of my mouth. And eventually it came out, and I said, Nya, 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 nya. And he looked at me and he said, just keep going, just keep going. So I could not make anything happen. I thought, okay, remember, this is a radio show. You're supposed to announce some music. So I said, we will now have music. We will hear music by Aaron Copeland. Who is Aaron Copeland? His name is Aaron Copeland. I could not get anything out of my mouth. So while the music is playing, I am so nervous, and I think, I just got to find some way of calming down. I know they don't want me to do this, but I'm just going to talk about this is not a fish worth flying. I know they don't want me to talk about it, but it's going to be all right. So when it's my time to talk, I say, well, we're going to go out and catch a mess of fish. And we're gonna cook that mess of fish in some canola oil or some butter. I have not the slightest idea where this is coming from. And it gets worse. I push the wrong buttons. I read the wrong script. I do absolutely everything wrong. And then 2 hours pass. unfortunately, it is time for me to leave. I pushed my chair away from the console and I ran out of the door. I didn't even speak to anybody. I just ran out of the door because I needed to get away from there. I got back home. There were messages on my answering machine from friends that heard, and they said, well, keep on trying. Well, needless to say, the radio station did not invite me to come back and do this again. Yeah, exactly. And I thought, well, there goes my career. There goes me being a wealthy person. There goes any opportunity at all for me. But you know, the truth is, I've had a pretty decent career and I've done all right. And the thing that I recognize is that that radio station, as good as they were then and as good as they are now, they are not the only fish worth frying.
Thank you so much, Harold. That was even better than I thought before. Well, that's it. Really glad Harold took us out on this really high note. John, if I could ask you to come back, I would love to get a photograph of the cast on stage before we completely break up. But a couple of, so we're going to do the raffle drawing. And then a couple of announcements. Like I said, next year I'm going to take a bit of a hiatus from the big shows, which might mean no big shows at all next year. But I will still have the wee-waws. How many people here have been to a wee-wah? Oh, I like it. Those of you who haven't, you should come. It's really fun. It's a baby version of this show. It happens at the Common Good Company Cafe on Moody Street. We have coffee, live music from a musician, dessert, 4 featured tellers, and then the second half of the night is a curated open mic. So you write your story idea down, I pull you up to the mic. It's very cozy. It's only 40, 50 people, so everyone ends up being friends and you end up chit-chatting. So I'll continue to have those two. I'm also hoping to use some of my time to do smaller shows and workshops for outreach into communities that have not yet been represented on this stage. So please come to me with those leads. I would love to find the people who have not told stories yet. And maybe they'll never end up on this stage, but I would love to be able to help them find their voices and find how to craft a story, how to represent themselves. It's become more important than ever to tell our stories and be in control of our own narratives. Let's put it that way. So thank you again for all the support for the statistics I had done at the back of the envelope for the Waltham Times article was, I got it all wrong. What was it? 70 is correct. So 70 or 75 now, I guess, or 76 now. Over 4 years, 76 unique stories and have been on the show. And the audience back of the envelope calculation is well over 1,000. So that seems like, thank you. Well, it's not a wow for me. It's a wow for the community. This show I know I'm the face and the white hair behind the show, but the show's has never been about me. It's been about everybody who shows up, and it's about the people who show up to be on this side of the mic. It's about the people who show up to be on that side of the mic. We are not the moth. We are not, I am not yet. We are not like, there's another excellent local show called The Stories from the State, which is absolutely, yeah, we have some people in the house from there. It's a fantastic show, and their standards are very, very high. And it's a national show. That's not what I am. Very purposely, we have very raw people here. We have people who are maybe not the smoothest, slickest tellers, although damn, some of them are. Excuse my French. Yeah, but so my heart is very full. Like Bob said, this was a complete leap of faith for me when I started it. I didn't know if anybody would show up. I didn't know if I would get criticized and flamed, but people have shown up, and they've shown up, and they've shown up. And so please continue showing up. I hope I will get some energy back and come back year after next with the big shows. And already a lot of people are pitching in to help me keep this alive. So maybe I'll be back next fall. I'll take a breather in the spring again. But please look out for workshops. All of you have a story to tell. Everybody's got a story to tell. We just have to figure out the right way to tell it. So with that being said, time for the raffle. And I did not get emotional. Look at me. And so we're going to change it up a little bit. These raffles are incredibly hard to run because there's so many moving parts. So there's a slight change in the way we're going to do it today, right, Kristen? So we'll do a drawing. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so the first drawing will be for the map. That seems to be very popular. I'm so thrilled. Thank you. I have others in the work because I'm getting bored of this, but this is the map. And Rachel, can you please? Rachel has always helped me so much with the show. So, and Amy, if I could get you to do the next one, that would be awesome.
So the number for the map is going to be 606 4967. 606 4967. Six oh six 4967. Oh no. My heart. Anybody? Did we somehow get a non-ticket? I'm gonna pull again. Is everyone really sure? I'm gonna pull another and we're just gonna be gracious to each other. Okay, here we go. This one is 573212. 5. Yay! And then we do have a sign. We also have a sign, and so I'm going to pick one for that. And Sean, do you pick that out special? 606 4971. 606 4971. Did you get that? Congratulations.
Rachel. And the last order of the night is my thank yous to everyone, to the museum for helping give birth to this, and for just basically giving me the space at a deep discount and with all kinds of production help. Mike Bavaro, who has always been the videographer, thank you so much. For 3 years, the show has been granted by the Waltham Cultural Council, so thank you to them. This year, my grantee is the First Parish Jones Foundation Partnership Trust, which has been wonderful, so thank you to them. Some volunteers, Rachel Parzivan and Jack Wozak have always stepped up to help. They were alumnus of the show. All their spouses have always helped. Amy Sporing has always helped. Deb Herman, who stepped up when one time I almost cried saying, I can't do this anymore. She said, no, stop, I'm gonna help. I'm forgetting everyone. Scott O'Neill, who helps. Almost everyone who becomes a teller ends up becoming part of the family, which is really, really happy for me. So thank you to anybody I have missed today. Christian Coe. Who am I forgetting? Anyone I'm forgetting? If I've forgotten anyone, thank you to them. Has Mayor McCarthy left? Thank you to her. She came to the first show and she came to this one. It's been a journey, but thank you everyone for showing up. Please continue listening to each other's stories and holding each other up. And go to the website, sign up for the newsletter, what is it called? The mailing list. And I'll keep you apprised of stuff that's happening next year. And thank you again for opening your hearts and encouraging me to come this far and for building this together. Thank you, everyone. Actually, we have about 15 minutes to go. So in a departure, because who knows, this could be the last show, would anyone like to come up and share their thoughts on anything that the show has meant or what living in Waltham has meant to them. I can give people 2-minute slots if they'd like to come up and say a few words. No hate, no violence, no politics, no fiction, no poetry. Jen? Yeah? Yeah? Just a couple of minutes, please, and then everyone else.
Hi, everybody. Can we get another round of applause for Chandri? I'm Jen Goldman. I was one of the storytellers at WeWa, the little one that happens at Common Good. And I just have something very quick to say, which is I've been impressed with so many of the stories over the year. And one particularly sweet anecdote that's very quick is my friends here. I don't know if they want to be called out by their name. Can I tell your name? Maybe I won't. Two of my friends here who had just moved to Waltham, I brought to WeWa that night. And when I walked them to their car, they shall remain nameless, my friend said to me, "This is our first night living in Waltham. I raised my kids in Newton for 35 years or whatever, and now I feel a part of Waltham. This was like the perfect welcome for me." That's just what your vision was. So it was really touching and special. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really special to hear. And lest this seem like I'm fishing for compliments, how about we turn this around? In a couple of minutes, would anyone like to come up here and tell me what they would like to see on this stage? Who should be behind this mic? What kind of story should we be telling? What have I missed in 4 years? Anyone want to put up your hand? Yes.
Hi. I actually called you earlier this week because I'm supposed to go to Fairbanks, Alaska, and and tell a story about how brownies changed my life. So I am, in fact, doing the Alaska version of the moth. We're going to Fairbanks, and I would love to come back and tell the story. It's pretty great.
Call it a night and say thank you very much. If somebody could take a picture of us, could I get the cast on stage, please?